You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify, and like Stables Media on Facebook. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Darren Weiss. Ed Smith and Frank Vashner are out. Ed Smith is a little under the weather. Frank Vashner has work to do. Darren, how you doing tonight?
Taylor, I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be back on the podcast. Happy almost New Year and happy holidays to all our listeners out there. And I'm excited to jump back into some Detroit sports talk.
Yes, sir. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips with 2 L's. And follow Darren Weiss on Twitter at DW33ZYY and on Instagram at Darren Weiss, the number 8. Let's go with our opening statement. Darren, what's your opening statement on what we're about to discuss tonight?
My opening statement is this. I think Michigan basketball looks good. They're young. Hunter Dickinson is very polished for a big man. I want the Lions to hire somebody with head coaching experience. I do not want Salah from the 49ers, and we will get into that later. Yeah, thank you. And, I think Michigan State may have found their quarterback of the future. So something we'll also be diving into.
Definitely. We'll talk also little Pistons and Red Wings and Tigers as well. But before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports app called VigIt, which influences more and more people to love sports. Sign up and enter the referral code STABLES with a capital S and a letter B in the middle when you sign up. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the letter B in the middle. So let's start off with some Lions here. Former NFL on Fox color commentator Chris Spielman joins the Lions front office as special assistant to the chairman, president, and CEO, and Barry Sanders to join as special assistant as well. And 2 others have joined. They'll help Sheila Ford Hamp and Rod Wood, their president, with the general manager search interviews and the head coaching search. So what do you think of that, Darren?
Well, here's what I think of it. For one, Barry Sanders, all-time legend, the best running back of all time in my opinion. He has never really cared about the Lions, hence why he retired after 10 seasons. He hasn't really been a part of the Lions. I know he goes back for like the 50th reunion or, you see him on, at midfield during halftime of Thanksgiving. But it's sort of, I think it's more of a publicity stunt. And Chris Spielman, I like him as a person. I mean, if you ever listen to his analysis during Lions games, I think he's a terrible analysis. I think he's way out of touch with football. I think he's still in the late 90s, early 2000s of, just bigger guys, not as much about speed and diversity on the football field. I think he's a little out of touch with the game. So if he's going to be making football decisions, I'm afraid it's going to be more of the same for the Detroit Lions as we've seen year after year.
Yeah, and Chris Spielman kisses the Lions' ass as well. Man.
Yeah, he does. He's sort of paid by them, so I don't think – what does he have on his resume in terms of making football decisions that warrants him getting a job with the Lions,
Not much of anything, if you know what I'm talking about.
Right. So it's another, Lions ownership hiring a friend rather than the right football decision. So until they start hiring guys based off criteria and experience rather than their friends or personal relationships, it's going to be more of the same, Taylor.
Yeah, it's more of their friends from now on. This Lions franchise is still owned by the uncaring Ford family. Sheila Ford Hamp, Martha Ford still alive, and others, Bill Ford Jr. And then
they need to sell the team.
Yeah, they need to sell the team, yes. They began their general manager search interviews a week ago with Vice President of Player Personnel Kyle O'Brien, Director of Player Personnel Lance Newmark, and Director of Pro Scouting Rob Lohman, all currently working within the Lions organization. Yeah, they're probably just friends with the meat of the matter in the front office. And then the Lions were also interested in former Houston Texans general manager Rick Smith, who served in that position for Houston from 2006 to 2017, drafted franchise players such as Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt, and DeAndre Hopkins. And Rick Smith made 4 postseason trips with Houston, and he will interview with the Lions next week. Also, the Lions will interview Monday Night Football broadcaster Louis Riddick this Friday. So what do you think of Rick Smith, by the way?
Rick Smith, in terms of who he's drafted, as you just mentioned, he has some pretty prolific names. And NFL, unlike the other, 3 sports, hockey, baseball, and basketball, you really need, all sports you really need to build through the draft, but especially in the NFL, because there's not that much turnover rate. You draft a guy, they're going to stay for a long time. So with that being said, we need to get better at drafting. The last couple years, Bob Quinn's second-round draft picks, Tease Tabor, Jahani Tavai from Hawaii. We're just not getting value in the picks that we're supposed to be getting value. I don't mind. We're never bad enough to have a top 3, top 4 pick. I know we did last year and we should have this year. But my biggest thing is, okay, you have the 10th pick. Just make the right pick. If you make the right pick at 10 or at 12 or at 14, filling a team's need and really going through the draft process, we can start to build this team. But when you're wasting second-round picks on guys with 5th and 6th-round grades, to try to be the smartest guy in the room, you're not going to have success. You're just not, and we've seen that. We've had too many whiffs on running backs. Kerryon Johnson, another second-round pick that's like a third-string running back. DeAndre Swift, he looks great, but already injury problems. Javid Best, he was awesome, injury problems. Jared Davis, linebacker from Florida, Bob Quinn's first-round pick when he took the job. That guy runs like he has a piano on his back, Jalen Reeves-Maben is a special teams player. Jamal Agnew, yeah, he was a nice pick. I know he made the Pro Bowl as a return man, but they already changed positions. We got to start taking players that can play. And stop trying to have the sexy pick or the smartest pick in the room. The draft analysis has got to get better. That's got to be the number one thing. Player personnel. And until that changes, it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, they need to improve their player development system, including the scouting. And you touched on the 10th pick. Would it be the best player available or a position player, such as a quarterback? Probably either trade up or find some other quarterback rather than Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sort of, with the new regime coming in, a new GM, a new coach, I'm going to have to guess at
a new regime, you mean?
Yeah, new regime, thank you, that they're going to want to take a quarterback, if that's Zach Wilson from BYU. And I'm a big Stafford fan. I'd love to see him go somewhere with a competent running game, a competent defense, and lead a team to the playoffs. And that's not going to happen in Detroit. He's gone through many head coaches, many offensive coordinators, many GMs, and it's been more of the same. So I think this new front office, this new coach, they're going to want to do the rebuild, and they're going to try to draft a quarterback. And my guess would be at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you're going to look at a quarterback like Zach Wilson out of BYU, because the other top 2 quarterbacks, as you mentioned, are going to be gone in the top 5 picks.
Right. And then you mentioned right before we started recording this that you don't like Robert Saleh. So you want to explain why with any analysis you have as to why you don't like Robert Saleh?
Yeah, have you watched the 49ers the last couple weeks? Their defense has looked
I've seen horrible. Highlights of them weekly. Defense looks horrible. Yeah.
The defense looks horrible. The Bills, they gave up 34 to the Bills. They gave up 23 to Washington. They gave up
the Washington football team.
Yeah, they gave up 27 to the backup quarterback, Taysom Hill and the Saints. Look, I know San Francisco, the best defense is sometimes good offense and vice versa, but they gave up 43 points to the Dolphins. They they lost to the Eagles, giving up 25 points. So 1 week Carson Wentz looked good. I think people like this guy. They want Saleh. Is that how you pronounce it, Taylor?
Yep, Saleh.
Saleh. They like Saleh because he's a Michigan guy. He's from Dearborn. He was a Lions fan. But I want a guy that has a track record a little bit. I mean, he hasn't stood out to me. There's nothing that he's done that stood out to me. And for that reason, I mean, I watched some of the 49ers games, and the defense just looks like it has Swiss cheese, so many holes. So that's the main reason. But again, you don't really know. I'd like to see, the last couple times, the Lions have not hired a head coach that was offensively minded since Caldwell. Jim Schwartz, Rod Marinelli, Patricia, all these guys are defensive-minded coaches, and I'm going to have to go on a limb and say they're going to go defensive-minded again, with good reason. The Lions' defense is the worst in the league. But, I'd like to see them go offensively-minded. The NFL now is, who can score more points. Right, who can score more points. All these teams have over 350 total yards a game. No defense, no teams are winning games 10-7. If you have a competent defense with a great offense, you're going to win games. And it's whoever scores the most points now more than ever. It's just high-octane offense, speed on the outside, running backs that can catch the ball in the flat, and defense, defenses have to be able to bend, not break in today's NFL. And you look at a lot of the good teams, it's because of their offense. It's not because of their defense. I think the Chiefs have a middle-of-the-road defense. The Steelers, again, I think they're in the top half of defenses, but they're not top 2 or 3 by any means, So I want to see high-octane offense. And we have the weapons, or we did, Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, and if we re-sign Kenny Golladay, so we'll see. But I want an offensively-minded head coach.
Right. I would like to see a head coach that's two-way, both offense and defense. A very stout defense and a very high-octane offense. And right now in the NFL, to sum it all up, it's been becoming more difficult to search for that two-way head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of teams that might have that. I like Buffalo, although their defense hasn't been good in the second half of the season. They usually have a good offense or a good defense in their offense. Josh Allen looks great, and, their running game's okay with Devin Singletary, and they have Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. I mean, they have some nice pieces, but the Bills just seem very, very balanced to me. Tennessee seems very, very balanced to me. These are teams where you think, if you don't have a good day on offense or defense, you can still win the game. And I like that. I like that, Taylor, having both sides of the football. But if I had to pick one, I'd want a guy high-octane offense. But I don't mind a guy, if you hire a guy that's a high-octane offense kind of guy, a Cliff Kingsbury kind of guy, I want to see them bring in a guy, a newer, younger defensive coordinator that is new, has a new, fresh look on things, One or the other. If you're going to bring in a defensive guy, bring in a young guy to be the offensive coordinator that has had success at some high college or puts up a lot of points somewhere. Give me something fresh on one side of the ball.
Right. One that can replace Corey Undlin as defensive coordinator and get an entire defense upstart, especially in the secondary. That's been struggling for years.
And they never seem to want to address the secondary, and I don't know why. They let Darius Slay go. They traded Darius Slay, and then they went out and they drafted a guy that was supposed to be ready. Jeff Okudah has looked horrible. I don't want to say the ship has sailed on him, but I do not like what I've seen out of year one. And if you're drafting a corner top 3, he's got to be ready to go right out of the gate. There's just no.
You also got to develop him too.
You do have to develop him, but I hope there's something to develop there. If you're drafting a cornerback in the top 3, if he's the best corner in the draft, he's got to be ready to play at least as a number 2 corner.
That half's on him.
Absolutely. So that's where we're at, and we'll go from there. But the secondary is just a mess. I mean, they're throwing guys in every week and just seeing what sticks. I mean, I liked Quandre Diggs. They traded him, but that's just sort of where it's at. They just have so many needs, so many holes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Jeff Okudah, speaking of whom, is out for the rest of the season after undergoing groin surgery. He's also been injury prone. He suffered 2 or 3 injuries this season. This one took him out for the rest of the season with only 3 games to go. Their next game is at Tennessee, which we'll get to after we recap this Green Bay Packers game, which was closer than I thought. Also, defensive end Everson Griffin, a veteran defensive end, he's on the COVID list.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, too bad for him. But the Lions are already 5-8, and they're slipping away. They're not officially eliminated yet, but they're going to be officially eliminated sometime soon. Even when they lose to the Green Bay Packers 31-24, they give it a good fight. Stafford suffered a rib injury in the fourth quarter, but the X-rays came back negative. He's only going to be out for the Titans away game. Well, at least possibly. Stafford's doubtful, I would say. It was tied at 14 at halftime going back to the game. And like I said last week, the Lions weren't going to reach anywhere close to 30 points. And I was right. They only scored 24, like I mentioned before, 31-24. The team fined Jamal Agnew for getting tackled by the kicker Mason Crosby. And then Frank Ragnow played through a fractured throat. Ouch.
I've never heard that one before.
I know. Now, to sum it all up, touching on Stafford particularly, as Spot Track pointed out on Twitter at Spot Track, quote, "We may have seen the last of Matthew Stafford in a Lions uniform," unquote. If it is, the Lions have to do something to fill in his cleats. They also need to address their offensive line and both parts of the defensive unit, like I mentioned before.
So everything.
Yeah.
It's a complete rebuild, Taylor, and that's what it is. The new GM and coach come in, have a big project, and this Lions team is probably 2 years away from being 2 years away in terms of competing. In terms of the Green Bay game this past weekend, they kept it a lot closer than me and you both thought. It really comes down to, again, and we've been talking about this for the better part of the last decade, I mean, Lions had no running game. You know, DeAndre Swift was 3.5 yards a carry. He only carried the ball 7 times. Adrian Peterson averaged less than 2 yards a carry. I mean, they have no threat on the ground. You know, Stafford looked really good. Not really good. He looked good. Decent, but he didn't make any mistakes that, you know, would have cost us the game. I just think...
Except he didn't scramble much, and he still sometimes dropped back in the pocket, and the offensive line doesn't help him out, and he gets sacked like 3 or 4 times a game.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the offensive line has so many holes, and, you know, we'll see what happens with Ragnow, and I like Taylor Decker. We'll see about that, but... Look, it comes down to the Lions have no running game still. You know, I mean, look, Kenny Galladay was out. You know, they don't really have Danny Amendola and Marvin Jones as your number 1 and 2 wide receivers. You know, that's got to be in the weaker part of it's got to be in the lower quartile of the NFL in terms of 1 and 2 guys. But it was more of the same. Let's see maybe some young guys play these next 3 games.
Yeah, earlier about a couple weeks ago, they waived Marvin Hall Sr. to get the younger guys, quote unquote, a look. So the younger guys are going to have their shot. Also at wide receiver, a veteran named Mohamed Sanu.
He's a journeyman.
Yeah, he is. I've seen him make catches before, but you got a good point. So let's go to the Tennessee Titans. They kick off Sunday at 1 on CBS. It used to be scheduled to be on Fox, but now it's been moved to CBS. That's been the only type of move the Lions and Titans game upcoming this Sunday has had. Sunday at 1 on CBS. Any analysis on the Lions-Titans game? I know Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill are the 2 players to watch on offense.
Yeah, and don't forget about A.J. Brown on the outside, just a mammoth of a wide receiver. Look, I mean, there's not much to it. Without Stafford, I don't think the Lions have a chance. The Lions' defense is horrendous. Derrick Henry should have a nice game, running for at least 150 yards and 2 scores. I could see this game getting out of hand quickly. Chase Daniel, I mean, he's a backup quarterback. DeAndre Swift, again, is still hampered. I don't think it's going to be much of a fight for the Lions. My prediction would be, I could see Tennessee putting up 35 to 40 points. Let's say 38-17 Tennessee.
And that will be Darren's Viget predicted score, brought to you by the Viget app, a social sports app for sports fans that influence more and more people to love sports. Enter the referral code STABLES. My Viget predicted score would be Titans 41 and the Lions 13.
All right.
Yeah, it'll be a rout. So that's Lions. Now to college football. The Michigan State Spartans football team lost to the Penn State Nittany Lions 39-24. They led 21-10 at halftime and then got outscored 29-3 in the second half. I was listening to the game while my house was having a power outage. I couldn't be able to watch the game on TV, but I listened to it on my Walkman MP3 player. I had to deal with a little bit of the homerism from George Blaha and Jason Strayhorn. But anyway, Peyton Thorne didn't look too bad in the first half, but their offense and defense, they just fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, look, Peyton Thorne looks like a guy that can at least move the football and looks inept. Does not look inept, I should say. Penn State, I feel like, is a better team than their record shows. I still don't think they're very good. But listen, even with no fans, going on the road in the Big Ten is tough. Michigan State isn't a very good team. They play a lot of young players. And like I've said in previous weeks on the podcast, the number one goal for the Michigan State football Spartans should be to have a starting quarterback going into next year. I know that they just got a transfer from Temple. So Anthony Russo from Temple, who will be ready to play right away. So I think him and Peyton Thorne will have a camp battle next year, but it's good. Healthy competition is good, and they need to have a starting quarterback next year that can move the ball because they have solid young wide receivers that have showed promise this year, and they have a young offensive line that I think will get better. Michigan State always sort of screams as a team that sort of, wins games in between the trenches, pounding the ball up the middle, big offensive lineman, big running back, speed on the outside. So that's what they got to get back to find that long-term success.
Yeah, and speaking of a quarterback, Temple's senior quarterback, Anthony Russo, transfers from Temple to Michigan State. He can be a really good replacement for Rocky Lombardi and working alongside Peyton Thorne. Russo played 3 games this season before dealing with COVID, but he played 5 seasons. He was ranked 4th in Temple history with 536 completions for 6,287 passing yards and 44 touchdowns total. I think he threw 9 touchdown passes this season before suffering an injury and then dealing with COVID. Yeah, so he suffered a bit of an injury and then he has been dealing with COVID issues. So hopefully he recovers safely, but I'm pretty sure he will. But just like most other athletes, pro and college. But once this whole pandemic clears up before next year in college football in the 2021 season, the Spartans could use Anthony Russo, either him or Peyton Thorne. I would go with Anthony Russo as the starting quarterback, but unfortunately, he's already a senior at Temple, and he's probably not going to last any longer than 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, look, however it is, they need to find a quarterback that can move the ball and put them in positions to win. Rocky Lombardi is not the guy. He will not be the guy next year. It'll be Peyton Thorne, it'll be Anthony Russo, or it'll be maybe Theo Day. But like I said, they got to get a guy that can put him in position to win football games, move the ball down the field, open up the run, and get Michigan State back to where it was a few years ago.
Yep. So let's preview their Big Ten champions first round game against the Maryland Terrapins at Maryland. That is kicking off Saturday at 7:30 on the Big Ten Network. Maryland is only 2-3, but everybody's in the Big Ten. Everybody in the Big Ten is eligible now, even Ohio State, who only played 5 games. So did Maryland. Now, MSU and Maryland are both under 500, right?
Yep.
And MSU will be without junior cornerback Shakur Brown, who will forego his last year of eligibility. Actually, he'll still play in this game, but he'll forego his last year of eligibility. I almost misread that. And declare for the NFL draft. So let's get the analysis off our chest and then go with a Viget predicted score.
Yeah, look, this game could go either way. Both are young teams. Neither team is that great. Maryland has some questions at quarterback. Tuula Tagovailoa, Tua's brother, who's at Maryland, the former transfer, and I don't know if I said his name right, from Alabama.
Tagovailoa?
Yeah, thank you. He's unavailable to practice this week. So if he's not starting, this game's up in the air. I'd like to give, Michigan State, I like how they played in the first half. I think they're going to try to duplicate what they did in the first half and not come out sluggish in the second half. So why don't my predicted score, let's give Michigan State the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say 24-14 Michigan State.
All right. I'm going to go with Michigan State 27 and Maryland 17. Those are our Viget predicted scores, brought to you by the Viget app. Sign up with the referral code Stables with the capital S and the letter B in the middle. Now, the Michigan Wolverines football team will finish their season 2-4 because they had their game at Iowa in the first round. 16th ranked Iowa canceled because Michigan still is dealing with continuous cases of COVID-19, and I would think Michigan would have to forfeit their tenure in the Big Ten Champions Tournament, and Iowa should have to move on with a first-round bye. Wouldn't you think?
I mean, that makes the most sense to me, Taylor. I don't even think Michigan has any interest. I bet you half the guys, the seniors, probably don't want to play. They might not even have enough guys, with this COVID situation to fill a team. Who knows where they're at with that. So just make the most sense that they sort of bow out for the rest of the season, forget about the season, and try to go in next year with the same questions Michigan State has. Just find a quarterback. If it's Joe Milton, if it's Cade McNamara, if it's this kid they have coming in that's a high recruit, J.J. McCarthy, find a quarterback that can win you games. And, we'll see what happens. But I think this year's a wash. I think they should call it this year.
Yeah, true. They finished their season 2-4, like I mentioned before. And then we got college basketball. The Michigan State Spartans men's basketball team still ranked fourth. They took good care of the Oakland Grizzlies with plenty of offense, 109-91. And then the Michigan Wolverines men's basketball team now back up to 25th. Darren, I know you got some good insight on Hunter Dickinson, who will replace starting center Austin Davis, who was out indefinitely with a plantar fascia in his right foot. They had to barely hang on against the Penn State Nittany Lions in a neck-and-neck game this past Sunday, 62-58. So, Darren, fire away on the Spartans and Wolverines basketball team.
Yeah, look, in terms of Michigan, it's a young team. They're 6-0. The Big Ten is really competitive, a lot of skill. But the one thing I really like with Michigan basketball this year is Hunter Dickinson. And usually when it comes to college basketball, it takes bigs, power forwards and centers, a little bit more time to get acclimated to the college game than it does point guards or wings. And that's because as a big man in high school, if you're a 6'8", 6'9", 7-foot big man, you're not going up against that too often. You're not used to the speed of the college game. You're used to a lot more half-court sets, getting it down low and going to work, running the offense through you. And in college, it doesn't usually run through the big. And I've been very impressed with Hunter Dickinson. He's averaging 16-7 as a freshman. He had 20-7 against Penn State in the last game. He looks really polished. His footwork looks really good for a big guy. I know Jawan's been working hard with him. I like this Michigan basketball team. I don't think they're going to go to a Final Four or anything, but I think they could finish in the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten and, maybe make the Sweet 16, Elite 8. We'll see. And then Michigan State obviously looks really, really good. I think that Rocket Watts has come along a long way, and I think Izzo can trust him with the ball in his hands to both facilitate and to score the basketball. And then, I really think Joey Hauser, the transfer from Marquette that's eligible this year, has been a big addition. He stretches the floor. He can hit the three. Joshua Langford is back, one of their best perimeter defenders. Aaron Henry, he put his name in the draft process, decided to come back. He's a really good wing player, very athletic, can defend well, can go to the rim well. Julius Marble looks like a high-octane energy guy. I think this team's clicking. Izzo's biggest problem is he likes his teams clicking in February and March, not in November and December. So we'll see if they can stick with it. But this team looks really good, and it'll be interesting to see once Big Ten play starts how they adapt to that.
Yeah, let's see what goes down the road. And then we got the Big Ten season, conference season coming up in January, like usual. So
right.
That'll be interesting to see, as always. So to pro basketball, the NBA, the Detroit Pistons, their first preseason game, they fell behind by as many as 18 to the New York Knicks and lost to them in game one, 90-84. They made a comeback, but that 18-point deficit was the difference maker right there. And the Pistons redeemed themselves 2 nights later in the same building at Little Caesars Arena with a 99-91 win over those Knicks. Sekou Doumbouya with 23 points and 5 rebounds. Sekou Doumbouya showed that he can score. Also, you got Mason Plumlee, also got other guys chipping in that Troy Weaver has signed. Pistons, I'm surprised Wade LiAngelo Ball, along with Anthony Lamb and Lewis King, but LiAngelo Ball, I don't think was given any minutes this past Sunday. Not real sure. They could have given him minutes just to see what he can prove to the Pistons. But Darren, I like your insight on those Pistons in the preseason. I know it doesn't count, but there are players to analyze, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, this year and probably the next year, we got to develop the young guys. You got to develop through the draft. Guys top free agents aren't coming to live in Birmingham to play for the Pistons. You're not getting a Chris Paul. You're not getting these top guys. You're going to have to overpay for, guys like Jeremy Grant who are whatever. I don't even think he's a top 3 player on a championship team. So, this year is very important. I love the idea of starting Killian Hayes at the point guard position. You just coach. I love what the Pistons front office wants to do. Throw the young guy in the fire. Let him make mistakes, but let him learn. Let him learn through playing with the first unit against other teams' best players. And if you're going to do that, Killian Hayes is going to have his up and down. He's going to have his growing spurts and, growing pains. But we gotta throw Siako in there. We got to throw Killian Hayes in there. Sadiq Bey looks like a nice 3-and-D kind of wing player, like a Trevor Ariza type. let's see what these guys have. Isaiah Stewart's another guy. Let's see, just play the young guys, see what happens. Maybe you can get a first-round pick for Derrick Rose at the trade deadline. But I like the young pieces the Pistons have, and they haven't had young pieces like this in a long time. Usually when they draft these players in the top 10, 15, it takes them a while to get in the rotation. I love just throwing them in there and seeing what happens.
Yeah. And what about Jeremy Grant? The Athletic has said that he's been struggling as of late, his first 2 games in the preseason. Any insight on that?
Yeah, I don't look too much into preseason games in terms of struggling, at least as a shot maker. Killian Hayes hasn't looked good from the field either. He's missed a lot of shots, but I like that he's kept shooting. I think Jeremy Grant is in a new system, and he's in an unfamiliar role where he gets a lot more plays to him. He gets a lot more touches, and I think he's just trying to figure it out. And it's been 2 preseason games, and look, you got a long rope because you're paying a lot of money for the next 3 years. So he's going to have a long leash to sort of figure it out. I don't look at preseason. If a guy like Siakam has a great game, great. I hope it helps his confidence, but I'm not looking at that. But I'm also not looking at if Siakam goes 0 for 12. It's the preseason. They're trying new things. They're getting the cobwebs off. They probably have heavy legs, not playing in an NBA game in over 8 months. There's a lot of factors. So that's something I like to revisit a month to 6 weeks into the season,
Yeah, just 2 more games, both at the Washington Wizards this Thursday and Saturday at 7. Only the Thursday game is on Fox Sports Detroit, and we both can only view the Thursday game from our end. So, like I mentioned before, they waived LiAngelo Ball, Anthony Lamb, and Louis King. So that's everything Pistons that we've discussed. Now, for the Red Wings, they traded rights to restricted free agent forward Dmytro Timashov to the New York Islanders for future considerations. Who knows what they might be, but Steve Yzerman, like we've discussed a while ago, did some pretty good off-season work.
Yeah, I really like what Yzerman did, and this player they traded away was nothing more than a depth piece. He wasn't a top 6 forward. He probably wasn't even a top 9 forward. He was probably a two-way guy between the AHL and the NHL. They traded him to the Islanders. The GM of the Islanders, Lou Lamoriello, drafted him. So I think Lou likes him more than the Wings do, and Yzerman picked up another asset in a draft pick, and like I said, this was nothing more than a depth piece for the Red Wings.
Right. And then we got the Tigers before we get to 5 questions. The Tigers have signed, remember this guy, Ian Kroll, to a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. He was part of the Doug Fister trade, along with Steven Lombardozzi and Robbie Ray. They all didn't do too well for the Tigers in 2014, to say the least.
Yeah, look, don't look too much into this. He's a non-roster invitee. I think, as a left-handed pitcher, you will always get a look in baseball, or you will get a look longer than if you were a right-handed pitcher. Teams always need left-handed pitchers. But this is a nothing sign, a nothing pickup. He probably won't make the team, and if he does, he's a long relief in the bullpen kind of guy, and that's more or less what you're going to get out of him.
Yeah, he did play for the Atlanta Braves. That's all I know, but I haven't looked into his stats yet. Let me take a look at the MLB.com @Bat mobile app. Take a look at the roster.
Yeah, he hasn't pitched in the major leagues since 2018 with the Angels when he pitched 2 innings. And, he's been injured. He hasn't pitched more than 51 innings in a season, and that was back in 2016 for Atlanta. So he actually has never started a game either. So he's a long relief left-handed guy that's probably a quadruple A player, someone that's better than triple A but not quite good enough to make a big league roster. And this is a depth signing. That's all it is.
Yep. Ian Kroll posted a 2-3 record, a 5.34 ERA, and 54 strikeouts. I'm reading in an article in 60 2/3 innings over 78 appearances from 2014 to 2015 before the Tigers sent him to Atlanta as part of the Cameron Maybin trade. Oh, I got the Ian Kroll profile right now. 2018, no record, 2 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, a 0.00 ERA, a whip of 100, just 1 game. Let's see, the stats. Yeah, the last time Kroll played was in 2018. Wow. So his career ERA is 4.50, 225 games, 26 holds, 1 save out of 8 save opportunities, 1 out of 4 in 2014, 0 for 2 in 2016 with Atlanta. Those numbers are not good. 107 runs given up, 95 earned runs, 206 hits, 190 flat innings pitched, 27 home runs given up, 7 walks, 9 intentional, 178 strikeouts, a 147 career whip, opposing batting average career 276, a ground out air out ratio of 1.20, and 11 hit batters as well. So, yeah, those are not good statistics. Ian Kroll probably deserves to stay in the minors, if not call up to the majors. Yep. Probably in the minors.
Yep.
So, that's Tigers. So, we've covered everything, and now our 5-question segment. Question number 1. Which of the 5 candidates would be the best choice for the Lions as their next general manager? Kyle O'Brien, Lance Newmark, Rob Lohman, Rick Smith, or Louis Riddick? I think you can only pick one.
I guess...
You can pick 2 if you like.
I don't know. Rick Smith, just because I like who he's drafted.
Yeah. Rick Smith drafted J.J. Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, and Deshaun Watson, a really good quarterback. One year suffered a season-ending injury, but other than that, Deshaun Watson was pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good. How about you?
I would go with Rick Smith. Yeah.
We agree there.
Definitely. Question number 2. If the Lions can't draft a quarterback after Matthew Stafford calls it quits, then who should they go after in free agency?
In terms of a quarterback or any position?
Quarterback.
I mean, do you want a Band-Aid for 1 year like a guy like Fitzpatrick? Do you want to maybe go after a guy like Carson Wentz? You know, he might not be there in Philly much longer. Man, usually good quarterbacks don't come... I mean... Maybe a guy like Dak Prescott if Dallas doesn't decide to re-sign him, but he's coming off a major injury.
Which I saw.
Yeah, that was gruesome. Yeah, there's really, I mean, that's a tough question. I hope it doesn't come down to that, Taylor.
Yeah, but those are at least options that we mentioned.
Right.
That might become free agents.
Right. You know, Jameis Winston is another guy that's going to be a free agent.
Is Deshaun Watson under contract?
Yeah, he signed a long, big contract. He's there for another 4 or 5 years.
Still in Houston?
Still in Houston, yep.
I see. So, yeah, that he's out of the question.
He's out.
Question number 3. Which quarterback should the Spartans start next year?
I would go with Peyton Thorne. Try to build something. Try to get him starting for next year and the year after that, and try to build something from there. I like Anthony Russo. I like the competition, but if he's only there for 1 year, I want a guy that's going to be there for multiple years.
Yeah, have Russo as a backup, but still start Peyton Thorne.
Right.
Yeah, that would seem more fair. Question number 4. Who should the Lions fill in the secondary?
Draft picks. I think that based on, maybe you go out and sign a guy that is a veteran to teach the young guys, but like I said, this new coach, this new GM are going to be starting from the bottom up. So with that being said, draft guys, get guys under team control, get them to the system you want to play. Hopefully, it has nothing like Patricia's system, and you go from there.
And then question number 5: should the Wolverines football team be given a chance next year to play in Columbus at the Horseshoe instead of in 2 years, since their game with the Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus was canceled this year?
No, I think you just continue to go on schedule. This year, like I said, it's a wash. COVID, you cannot predict a global pandemic, and you just go based off the schedule next year because it would give Michigan more away games, something to do with not having equal number of home and away games in the Big Ten. So I just think it is what it is this year. You move on and you go according to schedule next year. Yeah,
Michigan will probably play at home against the Buckeyes on year end next year. So then the year after that, back at Columbus. So that's our 5-question segment. Darren, nice job as always. My prayers to Ed Smith for his recovery from just a flu bug. It's not COVID.
Good. And get well soon, Ed.
Yep, definitely. So before we go, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports app called Viget for sports fans, which influence more and more people to love sports. Enter the referral code STABLES when you sign up. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the Viget app and sign up with the referral code STABLES. Darren, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. We'll be back next week. For Darren Weiss and on behalf of Ed Smith and Frank Vassar, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips with 2 L's. And follow Darren Weiss on Twitter at DW33ZYY and on Instagram at Darren Weiss, the number 8. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power to the people. In with a high, we rest our case. Stay safe.
Au revoir.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.